they have a whole lifetime of being taught that a high income is what the goal should be. So every time they reach that next goal, the only goal they know and the habits they have is setting another high income goal and then going after that and achieving it. So when we tell them it's not the income that's going to bring this peace that you're searching for or the financial security, it's how that income is derived. It's so hard for people to understand because they have a lifetime of thinking that high income was going to equate to something.
You're making great money, and by all accounts, you should feel like you've made it. But for some reason, you're still chasing more, still feeling like true financial security is just out of reach. And there's a reason for that. The problem isn't your income. It's the myth that this high income will turn into financial security. If your income is dependent on your job, you're playing a very dangerous game. Today, we're breaking down the why staying rich is the most dangerous financial mistake you can make. I'm Nate Crannell, joined as always by Mike Neubauer. Together, we built Grand Vision Capital and Grand Vision Family Office, acquiring multiple millions of dollars of real estate each year and helping physician families around the country turn their six-figure incomes into eight-figure net worths. Let's get right into it. Why do so many high-income earners, especially physicians, feel like they're not as financially secure as they should be, even with a great income?
The simple and short answer is because anytime you are trading time for money, you're not actually doing anything that provides any security. The security is based on you being able to wake up every morning and go to work, and that's not a real secure financial future. So anytime you're trading dollars for money, you're dependent on your health. You're dependent on how you feel tomorrow. You're dependent on the fact that you're going to get up and go to work. And deep down, we know that that can't last forever, which is why we think about retirement, right? And we'll save for one day that all of a sudden that money is there, but that doesn't provide any more security either because markets go up and down. We don't know how much money we'll need in the future. We don't know if we'll be prepared. We don't know what health will be like. You don't know that you'll be able to work an entire career. So anytime we are trading time for the dollars, it doesn't matter how high that income is, it's never going to feel like true financial security.
And so why is there always, a lot of physicians talk about burnout. They talk about the rat race and the monotony that they fall into with their job. Do they feel like the chase is a higher income or that next level of their job that is going, like once they get to that point, now they're financially secure?
So that's the problem that everybody falls into. And it doesn't matter if you're a physician or not, but physicians are a great example because they make a very high income, yet they still have these same feelings. So the reality is every time we achieve a goal, we have this expectation of what that goal should feel like. So when we get out of residency, become an attending, boom, we made our first $300,000 salary. That was expected to feel like the most amazing day ever. But for some reason, there's really nothing that happens that day. You just wake up and go to work, life continues, and you still don't have that sense of true security. And then you set another goal and you go after that one. Now you're making $500,000. And for sure, now you're making $500,000. You're going to have total financial security. You're never going to think or worry about money again. It is easy street from here on out. But anybody that makes that money knows that's not the case. You still wake up and you still do think about money and you wonder, do I make enough? Do I have enough saved? Am I doing enough on the investing side? You still don't have that financial security every day that you wake up. And it doesn't matter if you go from 50 to 100 to 150, or you go from 75 to 300 to 500 to a million. Anytime you're trading your time for those dollars, you're never going to have that piece of security.
Define for me then staying rich. If someone feels comfortable, they're making $700,000 as a heart surgeon, and they say, you know what, this is it. I've met this income level. I'm now rich. But they don't flat out say that typically in their mind. It's just kind of that feeling of, I can run to a department store and buy whatever I want. It doesn't really bug me. But what does that staying rich mindset look like?
Yeah, so staying rich is the fact that everybody around you has an expectation that that income equals total financial security for you. So people that, let's say they make $100,000, they'll say, I'm stuck in the rat race. I can't get ahead. Because you make $500,000, they assume that you're not part of that rat race because you make so much more money and they're stuck in that same idea that you've had previously. If I could only make 500, then I would have no worries. And that same mindset then is what turns into the staying rich is you achieve that. So now you've achieved riches based on everybody else's opinion of where you should not have financial stress. So you've reached being rich, but you're still in the same rat race. So you're in the rat race with more money, but every day that feeling of being in the rat race is still weighing on you and you don't have that financial security. And that's the biggest danger and the biggest risk is staying rich, because everybody else around you thinks that life should be so great. You have so much money. You couldn't have a care in the world, but you don't feel that way. And a life where you feel like you're not at a point that everybody else thinks you are is just so much pressure and so difficult to really get to that next level if you stay stuck in that mindset.
So I think the best thought that where people are wanting to go is, I want to go from staying rich to enjoying wealthy. What's the catalyst? What's that piece there of staying rich to enjoying wealthy?
Man, that's a great, that's the first time I heard that, from staying rich to enjoying wealthy, that crossover, but that's a great point. And that would be what it would be, is enjoying wealthy could be the same amount of money hitting your bank account, but you no longer have to trade your time for that money. That money is showing up in your bank account and now you get to actually enjoy it. So rather than working Monday through Friday to see that money hit, Monday through Friday, you get to enjoy the blessings of that money and go do something in the world. So you actually get to enjoy that money and enjoy that wealth now, rather than feeling like I should be enjoying this. I make all this money. Everybody else thinks that I should be enjoying this, yet I don't feel like I'm living on cloud nine here with this life. So that transition has nothing to do with the dollar amount. It's all about, where does that money come from and what do I have to trade in order to receive that money? And that switch is where you go from staying rich and the pressure and the rat race of that to truly enjoying the wealth and enjoying life and having that piece of just freedom and just wake up without feeling any pressure for the day.
Yeah. I just thought of it, so I'm going to have to write that down. We're going to need to use that one, because that was, it just popped into my head. And I kind of teed you up there, because exactly what you said is where I wanted you to go with that, is that the number doesn't change. It's not like staying rich is $500,000 a year. Enjoying wealthy means you need to be at $1 million a year. The latter can also be at that $500,000 mark. And I think that's the piece that I think a lot of high income earners miss, is that there's a difference between rich and wealthy, not only from a mindset standpoint, but also from a financial standpoint. Like, I could look at two balance sheets, two personal financial statements of people that look very identical. One, I could say, if I know kind of the backstory of that individual, I could say this person is rich, but this person is wealthy, knowing what they're doing on their day-to-day life. And I think that should be the race, or that should be the, what's the word I want to use?
The goal.
That should be the goal, the drive that people have is, I want to get to wealthy on where I'm at today. Like, maybe I really enjoy being an anesthesiologist making $500,000 a year, and 50 hours a week doesn't bother me. But man, if 50 hours a week of work takes that 500,000, when really I could do that same 500,000 at 30 hours a week, that should be the goal, is how do I get from 50 hours a week to 30 hours a week? Not how do I get from 500,000 to $1 million, thinking that those two feelings are mutually exclusive.
Yeah, so the one point you made, you could look at an income statement and they could look almost identical, because if you scroll down to the bottom, and this is what happens, right? People do a budget, and all a budget means is that you make more than you spend every month. But on an income statement, we really dive a little bit deeper and we get to see, where is that income coming from? So if we look at that bottom number, it might be identical, but then we go up on the income statement and we see, where is this income actually being derived from? And you can tell how stressed somebody is, or how much pressure they have, or whether they have health problems, or whether they're free to go on vacation. Even though the bottom number of how much they have in their account each month after expenses is the same, their life is drastically different based on where that income is derived from.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the point where, when we look at the income statement that we share with folks in our family office, we have our 5-day financial challenge, where one of those days we shared the personal financial statement and the income statement with people participating in that challenge. The reason that's in there is because those two statements are critical, but it really gives you a snapshot of where you're at today financially. Really, it is numbers. It's hard to, conjugate feelings out of that. How do you pull feelings out of an income statement? But again, if you look at two side-by-side income statements and that bottom line number looks very similar, the feelings behind that number could be drastically different. What does a feeling look like for someone who has reached that, they've gone from staying rich to now enjoying wealthy? What's the feeling look like as they look at their income statement?
It's just that pressure, your life may look very similar, but it's that pressure that you feel on the drive to work. It's the pressure that you feel when you wake up, of like that breath of, man, I have a lot on my list to get done today, versus the freedom of waking up and just enjoying coffee. And whether you enjoy coffee until 8 a.m. or 10 a.m., it really doesn't change much. You get to just have that peace of being in the moment, and whatever this day brings, I can go ahead and move forward with it. And even, that's the biggest thing that we try to get across to people is going to work to make money is not the problem. It's having to go to work to make the money. That's where the pressure comes from. And once that pressure is no longer there, a lot of people just keep working like they always were. They really don't change their habits a ton, but that pressure is no longer there because they know deep down they don't have to. And when you don't have to, it's way easier to go and do something. So that's the biggest thing. And probably this is why it's the biggest, myth or the biggest mistake and danger. This is the hardest thing for us to get through to people. This is the hardest thing to explain to somebody, because when we work with somebody and we're talking to them, they have a whole lifetime of being taught that a high income is what the goal should be. So every time they reach that next goal, the only goal they know and the habits they have is setting another high income goal and then going after that and achieving it. So when we tell them it's not the income that's going to bring this peace that you're searching for or the financial security, it's how that income is derived. It's so hard for people to understand because they have a lifetime of thinking that high income was going to equate to something. And now that it's not, it's very discomforting to try to now say what I thought was the goal is actually not the goal. And then you feel like, wow, man, why the heck was I chasing that goal for so long? What should I have been doing? And you start to fall behind. So these are the conversations that are always the toughest. And this is why it's the most dangerous mistake, is because the deeper you get into this belief that a high income equals financial security, the harder it is to get out of that hole. The more time that has passed, the more set in that belief you have, and the harder it is to change. So that's really why it is the most dangerous, because for many people, that high income once seemed like a far off dream. It's amazing. Maybe they didn't grow up in a family that made that kind of income, whatever the case may be. It feels like such an unbelievable goal. And then when they don't feel that satisfaction and we tell them, you make a great income, but the goal is really how that income is derived, it's just so difficult for them to wrap their head around, because they've put in a whole medical school career, they've done all these things, got good grades, chasing this goal, and now they found out, man, maybe I shouldn't have gone after it this way, I am super excited to introduce to you the Doctors and Dollars 5-Day Financial Challenge. I'm Mike Neubauer, I'm CEO of Grand Vision Companies, and I'm the one that you see on the Wealth Wednesday and Daily Dollar episodes with Nate. So Nate and I are partnering again to do something even more exciting, which is the 5-Day Challenge. We're taking the best of all of our episodes, all of our expertise and knowledge, and we're condensing it into an impactful and purposeful 5-day presentation, 1 hour per day, for 5 days, to give you everything you need to build that foundation for your financial future. So if you're looking to gain the pieces, you want those puzzle pieces and find out how they fit in your financial plan, head over to the Doctors and Dollars website, join us on the 5-Day Challenge. We're putting it together for free, so you got nothing to lose. We look forward to seeing you on the inside.
Absolutely. And I think as you were saying all that, so I just recently recorded a Doctors and Dollars episode with Dr. Risa Lewis. She wrote a book on small changes create big impacts. One of the truths that she shares in that book is that time can only be spent. And so as we were talking about that idea that time can only be spent, you can't buy more of it, right? I just think back to the idea of turning active time into passive time. And I'm not talking about, we talk about passive investing and things like that all the time. But to your point, coffee until 10 a.m. Your first thing each day is until 10 a.m. 8 to 10 a.m., that's your time to sit and enjoy your coffee, go hang out with your kids or your grandkids, whatever it might be. That's what I mean by passive time. And to be able to enjoy life, and you're trading out active time that you would have done to earn an income with a portion or all passive time. I think that's the ultimate journey that we try and find, because either way, time is being used. Again, time can only be spent, but if we can create as much passive time as possible to enjoy the life we want to live, so much different than get good grades, go to a good school, get the great job, save money, and enjoy passive time when you're in your 60s.
Yeah. Dude, that is awesome, because we talk all the time about trading time for money and why that ruins your life. If you focus on always trading time for money, you're never going to have financial security. There's never enough time, and there's never going to be enough money, because it's always this exchange. But so many people will then say, well, I need passive investments. I need to go do passive investments, and everything is always tied to the dollar and the money. But what you just brought up, which is a great point, is if you focus on passive time, the way you achieve that may actually be different. You may use an active investment that is more likely to achieve you passive time. You may do a passive investment that will get you passive time. But when you break it down to actually have what is the goal, and the goal is passive time, well, the strategy now to get to passive time may be different. But for sure, the goal to achieve that passive time, for sure, it is not exchanging time for money, because that's all active time. And if we set that up, by default, we have no passive time left. So
Correct.
if we can switch that, I love that, because the goal is passive time. Now, we'll ask people, do you want to do active investments or passive? Do you have a desire to be a part of it, or you really don't have a desire? But really, you probably need to switch that to have that first question be, how much passive time do you need on a daily basis? And then how can we achieve that amount of passive time with investments, to get there?
Man, I'm full of these little one-liner phrases today. I'm glad I'm writing all these down, but it just makes sense, right? Like, that's the goal, isn't necessarily to be able to just have more money to do fun things you want to do. The goal is to do more things that you want to do, right? It's kind of the hammer and the nail. You don't buy a hammer because you want a hammer. You buy a hammer because you want a nail in the wall to hang up a family picture, right? And so it's like, we truly want the passive time
tool.
Yeah, exactly. And so like the purpose is we want to create passive time. And so far too often, and I get it, like people, especially physicians that are in fast-paced environments, high stress situations, it's hard for them to take a breath and think about passive time. But that's truly what they want, right? That's truly what anybody wants, regardless of industry, regardless of job. What you truly want is passive time. Like, people can just wake up and say, hey, I don't really have a lot on my calendar today, and I'm going to go do what I want to do and enjoy myself. That's the end game.
Yeah. And you may use some of that time to go to work, because you may enjoy your job and be very good at it, and it brings you a lot of fulfillment now. But because you've created that passive time, you now get to choose to go to work. You don't have to go to work.
Yeah,
One thing
absolutely.
I want to make sure that we talk about is, how do you get this passive time? How do you create this margin? Because we talked a lot about trading time is not the way. So how do we know when we look at an income statement whether somebody has passive time or not? So let's go down that, because I think a lot of people will be saying, well, I can't just not go to work. What am I going to do? So if I can't trade my time, how am I going to make money? So if we think about that, that's the one thing that we always talk about with investments, and especially a lot of physicians get stuck in the 401k, IRA, HSA, all these tactics that people will talk about, but they're very basic tactics, and they are very one-trick pony. They have one purpose, and that's just to do the best we can on taxes. But what we don't talk about then typically is they'll be regardless of the consequences of getting this tax break. So let's say, for instance, HSA or a 401k. Will a contribution to that give me a break on my taxes? That is its sole purpose. Will it accomplish that? Yes. And everybody will read all over the internet, and there's all these strategies to help you put money into 401k, in an HSA, self-directed, whatever, with the sole focus on limiting the tax consequence for this year. It does achieve that goal. But what nobody talks about is the consequences of using that strategy. And that is that you're putting that money in jail. That money that you earned is now being set away for decades into the future, and you cannot use that money to create passive time today. You cannot use that money to create passive income today. You cannot start to change that income statement from earned income to investment income with the 401k, because it's locked up and it can only be invested there. The money can only come back into the 401k. So that's the biggest frustration that we have when we talk to people, is they'll say, well, I learned that I should max out the 401k. I learned that I should do this. I learned that, I'd do a backdoor Roth, and I'll add an HSA, and I'll self-direct. And there's all these strategies, and they do work for their purpose. We can never say they don't work. But that is the one big thing that is always missing, is the consequences that you cannot actually buy time in your life today with this strategy. So we need a mix of planning to take the most advantage of tax strategies simply to lower our tax bill today. But we cannot go all in on that, because we're going to give up all this passive time now until we're 59 and a half. And I know you're not. I'm just not okay with myself, but I'm not even okay with seeing people in our family office to say, like, I'm fine with 59 and a half. I'm just going to give in my life until then, and I'll create passive time once I turn 60. It's like, that's not what life is about. So we need to focus on all these things and the investments that are going to actually provide passive time in our lives today.
And honestly, that's why we set up the family office the way we did, having 2 application periods per year to keep it pretty exclusive. But also, we do have an application period. There's an application to fill out. There's conversations with you, conversations with me that are had with these people before they become part of the family office. Because if there was someone who's like, I'm good with 59 and a half, I'm good just skimming the surface with the basic, 401k, IRA, HSA strategies, our family office may not be a good fit for them then. And so that's exactly why we do it that way. Yeah, that's exact. Yeah, I didn't want to say the word definitely, but it was. That's truly why we do it that way, is because those strategies buy you passive time. Again, in the future, we want to give you strategies, or we want to help you implement and execute things that buy you passive time today. Without going into the weeds, because this will turn into a 2-hour-long episode, but what are some of those strategies that give you more passive time today?
Yeah, so real quick, the one thing I want to say is, with the people that we work with, that is like a great example because somebody could do an investment and make $1 million. And it's like, that's exciting. That's awesome. I'm definitely happy. But when I hear somebody like, oh, I can't be there because I'm going to be in Mexico for a month, and that was a bucket list item, and they're going to go do that because they've created the passive time to go live that dream, like that makes me just be so ecstatic because no amount of money return could ever buy that peace and that enjoyment and that memory. So I love when people have that passive time created, and that's what really gets me excited. So yeah, somebody that would say like, I'm fine waiting until 60 before I even think about enjoying life. That's not going to be somebody that's good for us because that just doesn't excite me. But the biggest thing is just the investments. We talk about them all the time, the different options. We really like real estate, private business, oil and gas are fine, but anything where you really are more on the private side and you kind of have that inside track. For physicians, a private practice, whether it's your private practice or you invest in another physician's private practice or growth, I think are great strategies. But the goal is taking money and putting it aside that is not 401k money. We're not saying don't max out your 401k. That tax strategy may be well worth it, but you need money on the side to buy passive time today. And you put that money aside and you start looking for these opportunities. And some people are going to say whatever is the best opportunity, and maybe it's a private investment, maybe it's real estate. Some people will be intrigued by real estate or be intrigued by private business more than the other. And wherever they feel kind of that intrigue, they should focus on that and start to learn more about those types of investments. But the whole idea is that you're looking for investments that are not going to create taxable problems for you. So you don't want somebody who is going to do a business and the whole goal is that they're going to flip houses and create these chunks of money once a year that create a taxable event and it's just growing money. That's not good for somebody who's trying to buy passive time because they're going to be taxed very heavily on that investment. And they're just be getting chunks of money. And chunks of money that's not consistent doesn't buy your time back. So you need to get the chunks of money. Typically for a physician making a lot of money, that's just going to be saving some money on the side. It's not really going to be side hustle type because they make so much money per hour by just working as a physician. And then once you have enough money, you got to start deploying that into investments, whether that be private business, whether that be a real estate investment. Maybe you buy a single family rental, you take that down payment that you've saved, you go get a loan, you manage that rental and you run it that way. Or you go totally passive on the real estate side and you put money with us and invest with us and we manage it for you and you get a return. But that base chunk of money is your investment into the fund. On the other side, maybe it's in business. Maybe you take that money and you decide, I'm going to start my own private practice and you go all active on a private business. Or you have another physician that you don't want to deal with active private practice that you operate, but this person does. So you invest and become a partner with them, but you're not an active participant. So the biggest thing is getting that chunk of money first, put aside. I'd say 50,000 would be the absolute minimum. The more you get, you start getting 100, 200,000. Now you're really going to be able to actually make an impact pretty quickly. Once you hit 500,000, a million of investable cash, now you're really going to be buying time back quickly. So that's really how simple the process is. Granted, there's specific investments within there, but we can't say like a single family or a storage facility or private practice or a car wash. Everything falls into one of those two buckets for the most part, private business or real estate. So goal one, get a chunk of cash to be able to participate, then decide private business or private real estate. And then you decide active or passive. Do I want to actually partake and spend my time doing this because I enjoy doing it? Or do I want to be totally hands off and I just want to find somebody I trust that can actually do something good with this money? And then you just identify those individual opportunities that are within those buckets. But once you decide that bucket, you will start to see opportunities that you never saw before. Things that you drove by before that didn't even catch your eye. Once you decide I want to make an investment passively in a private business, you'll magically start seeing that there's opportunities out there for that.
Absolutely. You and I talk to a lot of physicians on a daily, weekly basis. I get to meet a lot of new ones with the Doctors and Dollars podcast. But I've got to say, like, the happiest physicians that I meet with are the ones that have structured their financial life to match what they're doing professionally, in the sense that financially they've done well and they've made great investment decisions. Passively, they've created more passive time. They're only doing surgery on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or, they only work Monday through Wednesday because Thursday, Friday, they do some out of clinic things that they really enjoy, but they've structured their life to the way that they want to do it. Those are the happiest physicians that I've met.
Yeah, I would agree. And I listened to all those episodes and I would say the same thing. When you hear them talk, you can hear the ones that are stressed or the ones that are excited and feel free. And I bet we could look at their income statement without even putting a name on top and know who is who, know which one is which. The biggest thing with that is I just wish that more of them could do it at a younger age. You get a late start being a doctor, but you also get a very high income very quickly. And most of the people wait, 50 is kind of like the youngest. Most are really more pushing 60, and they still just love medicine. So they could retire, but they want to just kind of stay active. So they go, and now they really enjoy it, but now they're 60 something. And I would love to see the ones that are 35, 40, 45, 50, by the time they're reaching 50, they're like, I love life. This is amazing. I'm not stressed at all, and I really wish we could see more take a proactive approach to really dive into the financial world and say, you know what, by 40, I really only want to be working part-time. By 45, I only want to work because I want to work and I still love what I'm doing, or maybe I want to get into the academic side now and do something there. Maybe I want to start a whole new profession and just try something different and really learn a new skill again. I want to see more people have the freedom to make those decisions at a younger age instead of just saying, when I turn 60, hopefully that's the path that will get me there and I'll be okay by 60.
That's a great call to action to all physicians that are 40 to 45 listening to this. We want to see what your goals are and what's out there for you because, Mike said it. He wants to see more young physicians because they get out of medical school, get through residency, assuming that they don't do a fellowship. They're already 30, 32 years old. And I think that was one of the big financial pitfalls that we talked about in a Wealth Wednesday episode, the 5 financial pitfalls. One of those is delaying investing. And far too often, between getting out of residency and all of a sudden you're attending, those first 5, 7, 10 years, investing just isn't prioritized appropriately sometimes, or at least not just investing, but structuring your life the way that you want to do it. And then it is sometimes you're not finding that or prioritizing that until you are 50. And now you're having to do all these moves and all these investments from age 50 to 60. And now you're no different than any other physician that did it the old traditional way, by age 60. And so prioritizing that and making those moves earlier in your mid 30s, in your early 40s will pay dividends in the long term of structuring your life the way you want to do it.
100%, man. Yeah, I love the passive time. I think that's the key, the passive time. Focus on passive time, and life is very good when you have passive time in your life, regardless of the dollar amount on the W-2 at the end of the year.
Absolutely. We want to help physicians go from staying rich to enjoying wealthy. We want to go from trading in your active time to your passive time.
Yeah. And the biggest thing, so when we talk about the income statement, the kind of final bow on top of this is the income statement at the top is earned income, trading time for money. Below that is investment income, and that's broken into active and passive investments. But as that dollar amount moves from the earned income into the investment income columns, like every dollar that moves from earned to investment is one little ounce of pressure, one step out of the rat race. And pretty soon, more and more dollars flow from earned income and they drop down into the investment. And all of a sudden you're making $300,000 a year. It used to be 300 and zero. Now all of a sudden you look and you're like, wow, it's 100,000 of this is coming from investment income. And before you know it, all 300,000, 500,000, whatever it is coming from investment income. And that's really all this switch is. And the danger of staying rich. The danger of staying rich is that you stay in that top box. You stay in earned income. You never transition down to the investment income where you actually get to enjoy being wealthy.
And then the advanced strategy on top of that is going from earned income, investment income, low number of taxes, right? How do we create strategies that pay less in taxes, so that you're keeping more of what your earned income is along with your investment income? It's a fun math equation that we get to work on.
Yeah, man. I think if more people could just understand even that basic and understand that shift from earned income to investment income, that it buys them passive time and they could experience some of that passive time. They could head down to Mexico for a few weeks in the middle of winter and just get the heck out of here and just enjoy. I think they'd say okay, I get it now. It's not just theory.
Yeah.
I feel it. I know what this is like. And then very quickly they decide, I'm not waiting until I'm old to experience life like this. I got to make some changes and make sure that this is what life looks like starting as soon as possible.